definitely a Navy term.
Oh, yes. Make it so, number one. There was no signs of reading in the dark. They're popping up all over the place.
Well, a few of them now.
Okay. Everybody's here.
Close enough. I'm going to call this meeting of the Quebec Regional District Finance Committee for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022 to order. I want to recognize that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Willamette people who have occupied and lived in it for many thousands of years. First item on the agenda would be approval of the agenda. Seconded by Director Bigborn. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor? Any opposed to the agenda? Carried unanimously. We'll move on to the adoptions of the minutes of the Finance Committee, June 22nd, 2022. Any discussion on that? Any motion? Director Brabazon, seconded by Director Leachman. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We have no delegations or inquiry, no unfinished business. And we have a series of correspondence from residents of Lasqueti Island.
Move receipt.
Receipt. Do I have a seconder for that? Dr. Brabazon, any discussion? Director Fall.
Just briefly, I'll save my comments for item 7.2, but there's 17 letters here, and I received another 4, one of which I think got missed. It got sent to the regional districts, not a problem, and 3 of them were just to me, plus lots of other phone calls and other items that didn't show up. So there's there's additional correspondence in the same vein as these ones that came my way. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to point out that I read them, and they all ask for a fair distribution of honorariums, but I didn't see one that suggested what a fair distribution of honorariums would be. I sort of had the feeling that I was missing some communication in there. I certainly understand that the writers feel that the honorariums need to be distributed fairly, but there was no solution included in any of the emails that I saw. But we will talk about that, I suppose. All in favor of receiving? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. We move to the financial planning process. Ms. Greenan. Okay, moved by Director Brabazon. Do I have a seconder for that? Director Brander. See Ms. Greenan there. Do you want to speak about the process at all before we discuss it?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that the process again is planned that we will have the 4th draft in time for the February 2023 board meeting. And so the plan that I'm proposing is that the board would adopt the budget in February 2023, again, similar to what we did in 2022. Otherwise, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions from anybody? Director McCormick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I actually have a question and I'm not really sure who I'm posing it to. First of all, I think that I was very rushed last year when we did this. I felt that I really wanted more time to engage community members in discussion prior to the budget being approved. So I found it to be a very rushed process. But my question really is what happens if, Chair, and perhaps this should go to the CAO, if we have a new board who may or may not have been sworn in. In all likelihood, we're going to have new city directors. We're going to have a new director for Area A. If one of the remaining 4 of us chooses not to run or is booted out of office, you're going to have a majority of the board that is brand new. And I don't think it's really fair until they've gone through at least some kind of orientation or whatever, which, you know, November isn't going to allow, December isn't going to allow that, you know, to unfold. It's going to be really difficult for them to be able to get a handle on what they're doing, and certainly to be in a position where they can think constructively about the budget. I think it's just too soon with the new board coming into office in probably November. I guess the swearing in will be. And so, you know, I think it's really rushed, and I think that it should go back to pre-2021 process of adopting the budget in March, as is, you know, for our requirement provincially. So I guess my question, Chair, is that what would the CAO recommend if you're dealing with a whole new board of directors and a budget?
You have an answer, CAO, acting CAO?
Thank you, through the chair. So if the budget process, we can, because this is planned to end earlier, if we're not ready, we still have some grace room to consider the budget in March and extend the process. Does that answer your question, Director McCormick?
Thank you. Partly it does, CAO, but, and I hate to put you on the spot, but really we have to consider, we as a board have to consider that come the time that, you know, November comes around, it could be a whole new board, or at least a majority of a new board. And is it really fair to throw them into a budget process in their first few weeks of office? I really think that we should delay by a month, even if it's just for this year, to allow the new board to, you know, get a feel for things before having to make a decision as major as the budget is. So I'd like to see it postponed.
Dr. Gisborne.
Thanks. Starting the budget process earlier is something that I think we kind of started doing this term. Yes, we may have new board members. We may have a whole new board. You never know. That's kind of the challenge with governance and elections. It's kind of like a schizophrenic roommate. The personality could change every election. However, that being said, starting the budget process earlier doesn't mean that we have to adopt the budget earlier. The budget and the manager of, if I'm wrong, must be submitted by the end of March. So new directors can, you know, be thrown right into the budget process as soon as they're sworn in, I believe in November. And you know, it may seem unfamiliar, may seem a little alien, but the board will continue, and they can change their mind. They might say, okay, we like this in November, and then as December and January roll around, they then might move into February and say, okay, we supported, you know, draft 1 and draft 2, but now the new board has that authority and that control to say, okay, now that we're going into February, you know, they might even want to have an extra finance committee meeting to really get into the budget. I'm totally fine with the earlier start time, so that, you know, you get those new board members and they start to get into the process. But there is still that deadline, and they have the time from when they get sworn in to the end of March to sort out what's going on with the budget. And that's why I'm comfortable with having the budget done a little earlier. And I know other regional districts, some of them are starting the budget even earlier than ours, like into September. So I'm kind of curious how they handle, you know, being halfway through a budget process and then having an election. I'm not sure how they sort that out. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? I'm just going to add my comments in there. I think it's a good schedule. It starts with draft 1 in November, and it gives a process not just for the board, but for the public to be aware of. There's 4 opportunities for public input in the plan as it exists. There can be additional finance committees meetings or board meetings as we go along the way to add to that, to have more consideration about it. There is room to extend it if the time has to be extended. I think it's important to immerse new directors in the finances of the regional district as soon as possible. Because if they haven't thought about it before the election, they will certainly think about it at their first meeting in November when they realize that everything that the regional district does is somehow connected to the budget, and it all works together. It'll be a steep learning curve. I know it was a steep learning curve for me when I came on board the regional district, but I think that's basically the game you're getting into when you run as a regional district representative. And I like the plan. I think it gives plenty of opportunity. As I said before, I don't want to be too repetitive for public input. And hopefully everybody will take the drafts seriously from the beginning to the end and think them through. But I want to thank staff for the plan, and I'm quite happy to approve it myself. Anyone else? Shall we, I think we need a motion to send this to the board, don't we?
Thank you, Chair. We have a mover and a seconder for the motion.
Just about forgot about that. All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Unanimous. That's to item 7.2, which is the Lasqueti Island Volunteer Fire Department Honorariums. Dr. Grubbs, Dr. Fall has his hand up. I wasn't sure what your 10 movements meant.
Thank you. I sent our corporate officer, our acting CAO, a slightly revised motion. I'll read it out while hopefully she's able to bring it up. The first part's the same. It adds a clause at the end. So I move that the committee recommend the board receive the information in this report and reconfirm direction to staff to develop a comprehensive honorarium policy to inform all Githet Regional District volunteer fire departments, and that takes into account the unique differences among fire departments. And if I get a seconder, I'll explain.
Second, Director McCormick. Go ahead, Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. The concerns raised in the letters are unified, and to follow up on Director Dout's comments that some of them are very short. The letter by David Ham, the reason I mentioned it is he provided a bit more background. I've talked with several of the letter writers and other constituents, including members of the LIVFD, about this. One of these is part of a group of LIVFD members who call themselves the Hot Girls Club, which includes some strong women who will undoubtedly continue to play a large role in the fire department. All had a consistent perspective that the LIVFD honorariums should be allocated fairly. There are two aspects to the concerns about fair allocation. The first one is that honorariums are allocated at all. In 2021, the LIVFD honorarium budget was $36,000, which is reasonable. However, only $6,548 was spent. In 2020, the budget was $20,000, but only $7,500 was spent. From 2019 to 2021, between 76% and 83% of the honorarium budgets for the Malaspina, Northside, and Savory Island volunteer fire departments was spent. However, it was only 26% for LIVFD over the same time frame. At the June Finance Committee meeting, we received the interim financial statements to May 31st. The report stated, quote, "When budgeted costs occur uniformly through the year, it is reasonable to expect that 42% of the budget will be spent by the end of May," unquote. Honorarium expenditures may vary by month, and between 18% and 27% of the honorarium budgets for Malaspina, Northside, and Savory Island volunteer fire departments was spent to May 31st. However, only 4% of the LIVFD honorarium budget was spent, following the same trend as the last several years. The Lasqueti public have been consistent in their desire for the LIVFD honorariums to be allocated to the volunteers. It's not often to hear taxpayers demanding that their money be spent. The second concern relates to the fairness of the allocation among LIVFD volunteers. The main message that I have heard is that people want equal honorarium compensation for equal time, regardless of role. More specifically, since there is no BC Ambulance Service paramedics on Lasqueti, LIVFD first responders carry a heavier load than areas with paramedics. I presume this is also the case for Savory Island. Since first responder calls represent the large majority of emergency calls, these volunteers put in a lot of time, often in the middle of the night. As stated in the staff report, we know that honorariums are a crucial element of recruitment and retention. While the time spent can never be fully compensated in a volunteer fire department, equal allocation for equal time is viewed as fair by both the public and LIVFD members. This isn't so much about compensation as it is about covering costs. Most LIVFD members are younger, working age people who are either self-employed or paid by the hour. There are not many salary jobs on Lasqueti. Attending emergency calls means lost wages as well as the costs of car usage. We are all aware of the surging costs of fuel, and on Lasqueti, it costs something like 50 cents a litre more than in Powell River. Recruitment and retention is arguably the most significant challenge facing our fire departments, and I believe it should at least be cost neutral to volunteer. The strong public support for first responders was clearly shown in the asset management survey that we received a couple months ago. Over 82% of the responses put medical first response as the most important LIVFD service. I envision an honorarium policy that provides a consistent framework among our fire departments and that also reflects the unique situation of each. For LIVFD, I would like a policy that would allocate available funds among LIVFD volunteers equally based on time spent over the year, after accounting for the stipends for the fire chief, deputy, and captains, and completion of firefighter training. Based on the table on the second page of the staff report, this would be over $25,000 per year, considering, or at least for 2022, considering the small number of volunteers that complete firefighter training each year. Based on the extensive feedback we have received, this is what the public wants, and this is what the volunteers in LIVFD want, including the fire chief. From the staff report, quote, there are currently 4 LIVFD members eligible for the $12 firefighter honorarium. Though the fire chief has indicated he is not comfortable endorsing this honorarium while other LIVFD members are not compensated, end quote. And by other LIVFD members, he's referring to the non-firefighters, the first responders, and the response coordinators. In February 2021, we adopted the resolution that the board directs staff to develop a comprehensive honorarium policy that will guide and all Cathett Regional District Fire Departments under a single policy. I understand this to mean a single policy that aims for consistency when it makes sense and for differences where appropriate. I don't understand this to mean that all departments would have exactly the same honorarium structure within that policy. And I understand, the mention in the staff report about the fire chief's working group, and I look forward to seeing that come forward. But I would like to, move forward with this motion. I think it would be good. All that I've said, or given that all I've said, it would be good for the board to be clear in its direction, which I've articulated in the revised motion before us, and which I hope can receive support. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We have no new business. Question period. We have Mr. Galinsky online.
I'm online, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm wondering through the chair if the manager of financial services can elaborate on what is going to be done to inform taxpayers of the budgetary process in the coming year.
Ms. Greenan, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. The plan is that we will advertise the budget meetings, and the public are welcome to come to the meetings and give their input. So we advertise them on our website and in the newspaper and in the Lasqueti Island, on the Lasqueti Island's website and in the Texada Island Times.
So essentially, through the chair, it will be a process of advertising that will be used to encourage people to come to meetings. I presume there isn't additional opportunity other than writing letters or appearing as delegations in order to find out what's going on.
There isn't any other public engagement processes planned other than the regular public engagement processes through the planning department and through the commissions, the Texada Recreation Commission, Texada Heritage, Sabre Marine, Texada Airport. Those are the only other engagement sessions that are planned.
Thank you very much, Ms. Green, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to ask a question.
Okay, and from my perspective, Mr. Kalinsky, we hope that people read the advertisement that they see in the local papers and online. I've seen the advertisements myself, and it certainly is helpful when residents and taxpayers show up to these meetings, particularly the early ones in the process, and let their opinions be known about what they would like to see throughout the financing process. We generally hear more from people after we complete the process than we do in working up to it, and I'd really like to see more people involved from the beginning in November throughout the whole process. So.
Thank you, Chair. Can taxpayers reach out to the Finance Department if they have any questions about the budgetary process?
If people have questions about it, they're referring to the Regional District Finance Department. That's appropriate.
Yes, that was my question, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the public online? I'm not sure if there are. Nope. So that will bring us to the in-camera session, of which we have none. And the next item on the agenda is adjournment. So thank you very much for participating, folks, and making it quick. 20-minute meeting. I like that.
Enjoy the sunshine. Thanks, everyone.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Yeah.